Okay, so the next game we're doing is Turrican, which was nominated by Tony MSG on, I believe, Brazilian iTunes, who put it in a 5-star review on Brazilian iTunes. And he did this way back in May of 2016. And I didn't notice it because I didn't realize that they don't push these reviews to the US store. They just stay where they are. I believe it's the only review on Brazilian iTunes for our show. But it's still great. And he says, cool podcast. I'd like to nominate Turrican, especially for the music. So, let's see, Turrican, what do we... So, I guess we're going to rank the Amiga version, even though that's not technically the original version.
I think the Amiga version is generally considered the best version.
They weren't quite developed concurrently, or they were, or was it that Factor 5, which did the Amiga version, did they finish first?
I think it was the Commodore 64 version that came out first, and then Amiga came out a little bit later. And
it was released in 1990 for the Commodore 64, and I think the Amiga as well in the same year, right?
I believe so, yeah. And it also had a Genesis and Game Boy port, I think. Oh, and a TurboGrafx port, but I don't think that one's very good.
I mean, as far as I know, they both came out in 1990. You know, the Commodore 64 and the Amiga versions. They kind of came out roughly the same time, I think. Just so you know.
1990. That takes me back. Hey, Dogs, what were you doing in 1990?
I'm gonna take a bath. Nothing's gonna stop me.
That probably is what he was doing in 1990. So I think we can live with that.
He's been in the bath since 1990. That was really the issue.
Your views intrigue me, Dogs, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter. Turrican. What can we say about Turrican that hasn't already been said? Like this is easily. I mean,
it's probably.
There is one comparison I can make real quick.
Yeah.
You guys remember the Great Gianna Sisters?
Mm-hmm.
Turrican is like the Metroid equivalent of that, except slightly less copyright infringing. It doesn't play much like Metroid. Well, it's actually a very different kind of game, but...
Well, that's the thing, like, the Great Gianna Sisters is very, very much... Let's try and... It kind of misses the point of Mario a little bit. Like, I don't think it's as good as Mario, really. But, you know...
Are we talking... Wasn't one version of the Great Gianna Sisters, wasn't that literally just like the Mario levels? Or am I misremembering this?
I've always been... the one I've played in the past is, it has, like, mostly the graphics are the exact same. I think the levels are slightly different. The layouts aren't identical, but I believe you go from the overworld to the underworld, like the standard Mario progression, and then there's, like, giant mushrooms and stuff. Like, that's...
So,
I could be completely wrong,
Turrican...
but...
Yeah, Turrican has been often described as, like, a combination of... Like, it's like a Euro version of Metroid in a way, but it also is a game that I have just now learned about, which is Psycho Nix Oscar, an arcade game by Data East. Came out in 1987. You guys familiar with that one?
Generally very Japanese influence, which you didn't really see that often with Euro-developed games back then.
Although they did love except for the shooters, I guess, right? Because they really love those... You know, it's interesting because right now, like, a lot of the, like, indie space has been completely consumed by love letters to basically like Famicom NES games and that kind, or Super Nintendo games.
That's tailing off a little bit now. That's sort of because people are kind of like sick of like nostalgia that they have no nostalgia for because
anymore. Except now, try to buy a NES Mini Classic or whatever. I dare you.
Well, I don't wanna.
But yeah. But anyway, okay. So all right. So let me just. Have you either of you guys played Psycho Nix Oscar?
I have not.
No, but it's a Data East game, which means it's very good, and it was probably stolen from.
So I don't know, but it stole from other things. So it is very similar mechanics, although of course the idea of like a robot that walks from left to right and shoots things is not super duper original, but it's like a platformer in the same sense. It doesn't have quite the kind of exploration of the levels really.
The levels are very huge though. Like they're pretty open and non-linear. Like you do have to get from one point to another, but it's rarely, if ever, just straight to the right.
I mean, with Psychonix Oscar, the only other thing I'll say about it is that it uses the Gradius style upgrade system, I believe.
Yeah, it's
so
more
you got,
of,
like,
I
a
think
little bar at the bottom.
it's more like an arcade scrolling sort of shmup sort of thing, except you're in a robot suit, and I think it's more like aesthetically, I think Turrican owes a great deal to it. Not necessarily the gameplay, which is kind of more dragged out from Metroid, I guess. Like,
I'm surprised more people don't compare it to Probotector, which was the UK version of Contra.
It's very possible that it might have been. The spread shot feels very Contra-esque.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat a spread gun. But basically, I mean, this game is...
well,
I mean,
Turrican is
a
a whole bunch of games kind of mashed together, and it's different to all those games, even though you can say it's like this or it's like that. It has a sort of open feel, but every level, even though most of them are quite open in places, they're still like linear levels, you know, like it's not Metroid. You are not exploring a world. You are exploring a level that has nooks and crannies, but you do have a end point, and every level of Turrican is getting to that end point. I believe progressive...
There are boss battles as well.
Yes, and progressively future Turrican games would condense it to a more and more linear experience, which I think is why Turrican 1 is often the favorite of a lot of people, because it is like the most open sort of thing. And it's hugely open. Like, for a Commodore 64 game, that's very impressive. It's got scrolling... like proper scrolling in a proper large open world. Very, very cool stuff.
It's not an open world, but a very large worlds. And as a Commodore 64 game, just since that was what it was designed as, this is not only one of the most ambitious Commodore 64 games, it's probably the best Commodore 64 game I've ever played.
This is pretty late in the lifespan, so they had lots of time to work over it.
Well, I mean, you can look at it as basically like it's very, very, very similar to the Amiga version. Like, that's it. Like I mean, graphically they're different, but you know, gameplay-wise, they're very, very similar. So
yeah, I mean, if you're gonna play one now, like, play the Amiga version. I'm just pointing out that the Commodore 64 was the original version. That was what it was designed for, and it was incredible for that platform. Even as late as 1990, it's still I mean, we were just talking about Commander Keen a couple episodes ago.
Yeah,
I mean, that's yes. I mean, it blows that away. Like, it's so it's just like light years beyond. I mean, Commander Keen, like a normal human being, can finish it without too much problem. So that's, you know, props for that. Level design's a little bit worse, and level design is probably Turrican's weakest point, I think. Although I like what they did.
I'm going to be honest. I need to go into a small rant here. I would say a Turrican is leagues harder than Keen, and for one very specific reason. This is a thing that actually comes up a lot between us when we're discussing European games, and it is a thing that we have called, for lack of a better term, Turrican health. Cal, I think you can explain this for us.
Well,
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's a really simple thing. It's that in Turrican, you don't get knocked back, and you have a very, very lengthy health bar, and that's really great, because a lot of Euro games were like, you get hit, you die. Lots of games, you get hit, you die. Turrican, you get hit, you lose health. Downside, every microsecond that you're on an enemy, or every frame, your health goes down. So even the most basic, useless enemy in the game, if that thing grazes you, and it just stays attached, you immediately die. So your health bar is kind of a lie in many ways, and it can get very frustrating to play a game and then get killed by the most lame things, while, like, other enemies don't kill you as quick, which is a very odd design. I mean, this design, it begins to make sense when some of the bosses, like, the first boss is I believe the first boss is the hand, like, it's just a robot hand that comes out and tries to hit you. And that's all this boss does. It just tries to get on top of you so that your health is instantly drained and you die. So if you're used to Western games or Japanese games where you either get hit and die, or you get knocked back, you don't get invincibility frames in this. You are a man in a robot suit who, if you are in any way attacked, you will probably just drain out and explode.
Yeah, the weakest enemy can kill you in like a second.
So pay attention.
Now, you do have this one move you have where you turn into a spinning wheel, kind of Metroid-esque, and you're invincible. But you can only do that 3 times per life.
Yeah, per life. That's a very odd...
It's a bit harsh, isn't it? I mean,
this
it's
game...
a really useful thing, though. It's
yeah,
like,
it's basically like your super hyper defensive move. Like, you're not supposed to waste it.
In the game's defense, like, they probably realized, like, they created this thing. It's like you turn into, like, a buzzsaw kind of thing, and you roll around on the ground, and you can't, like, you basically just go in whatever direction you're pointing, and you can reverse direction, but you can't stop. And it rolls. It's a great way of going through obstacles and destroying everything in your path and all that.
It's very fun.
But it's super duper powerful, and so they probably realize, oh wait, no, this is overpowered. Like, we got to figure out a way of limiting this. And I feel like the way they limited it feels more frustrating than it should. But I mean, in a way, it's like better. Like, you just start a stage, and you got so many lives, and you can do it so many times. And once you get used to, it's like Sonic the Hedgehog in a way. Like, the levels are sprawling, and you can explore. You've got, there's a time limit, I believe, but
there is a time limit, and you have like a bunch of other weapons. You can shoot. You can collect your you got bombs and stuff. Sort of like they shoot like a shockwave either side. You have your like crazy like electric whip thing that happens if you think you have to hold the fire button and then wiggle the stick or something. I can't quite remember the combination.
Right, that's another thing I should bring up real quick.
You only have one button.
Yeah. So to do anything else, you have to use the space bar for everything, which is a bit awkward if you're using a controller.
It's always awkward, and it would have been... I think that, does the spacebar activate your, spinning wheel, doesn't it?
You have to hit...
I think you have to be pressing down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you gotta do some weird stuff. I guess it kind of feels like operating a robot in a way, because you got kind of like a joystick in one hand, and you got, like, the keyboard on the other side. That's I don't mind that.
But, I mean, just to finish my thought on this, it's like about the saw thing. The buzzsaw ball thing is that the thing that they probably like you end up plotting out a path through each stage as you play it. And if you're a kid in 1990 and you're playing this game, you're going to be playing these levels over and over and over, and you'll figure out which way you want to go, what kinds of things you want to get. There are secrets in the game, like invisible stuff that you shoot, and then it creates like a little like weird globule of something, and you hit it with your lightning bolt or whatever, and it, you get power-ups that way, and you develop a strategy for moving through each level, and that's why I compare it to a little bit Sonic the Hedgehog. And in that sense, like, limiting you to the 4 uses of the buzzsaw thing per life. Is it 4 or 3?
3.
3, right? It's not that crazy because it... once you figure out how to get to the end of the level and what you want to do, you'll know where you want to use that, and that will become part of your strategy. So I don't want to. I feel like it's too overpowered ability that for them to just give it to you unlimited, or even to allow you to refill it. And so you might as well just make it tied to you can use this 3 times per life. Period.
I should know in Turrican 2 it is unlimited, and you really still need to get anywhere.
Yeah, but they changed the design of the future games. That's the thing. They redesigned Turrican for the second game of Turrican again.
I mean, the level design, we got like, everything about this game is awesome, except for the level design, in my opinion. Like, I like what they were trying to do, but I feel like it falls prey to like the Wizards and Warriors school of level design, which is like the giant world of platforms. Also, I believe you can't, there's no way in this game to jump through platforms to get up to the next level. So you have to constantly be doing this, like, moving to the left or right, jump, and then move back and kind of float back on
like
to jump up through.
Yeah.
It is crazy difficult because you have to press up to jump, and that's not the fault of the developers. It's just the limitations they had to work with.
Well, welcome to the one-button joystick. If that's the case,
allow you to jump through the platforms to get up, or jump back down through the. I mean, this is a very basic thing that anyone who played NES games would know.
My assumption is it probably has to just simply do with the fact that it was built for the Commodore 64 originally, and I don't even know if it would have had the sort of raw machine power left to even differentiate, like to add that extra game, because this game is so rich of content.
But yeah, but I mean, like the wizards who made this game on the Commodore 64, and there are specific names tied to this.
Is the guy that made it, Manfred Trent's cool name.
You can't tell me that they couldn't figure this out.
Maybe he was just frustrated. Like, you can't jump through rock; it's not physically possible. Like, I refuse to do
that. That's what it seems like to me. Yeah.
The problem is, a lot of this game's design elements, we're really not sure if they were intentional or not.
I don't think that's a problem if it comes together, and that's the thing about Turrican. It really does come together. So
it is so rad. Like, I mean, the music is awesome. The weapons are good.
It's important to note, I believe the music is entirely to the Amiga version. I believe the legendary soundtrack is for the Amiga. Can either of you confirm that?
I can't. That's the one I played, so I don't know.
Right, I believe that's the one by Chris Holzbeck, who always does some really great stuff.
Yeah, I mean
it is incredible.
I was gonna.
Any final thoughts, dogs, before we start ranking this one?
Dang, he's alive! I was hoping you'd be dead so that I'd be debt-free.
Chris Hasselbeck is alive, and shows the longevity of the Turrican soundtrack, because that thing was kickstarted for so much money to do like a re-release of the soundtrack, like redone orchestral stuff, and people love this soundtrack. I didn't know that happened. I would have backed that. No, they did it. Turrican 1. I think they did Turrican 2. They might have even done collected Chris Hasselbeck. There's a lot of like rehashed things. Yeah, Turrican is this is the soundtrack. The Amiga soundtrack for this is also it plays the music while you play the game, which is so important, you know. So many Amiga games were just like... It's got loading screen music, does it not, the Amiga? It's got loader music, it's got in-level music, it's, you know, it is... That adds so much to the atmosphere of this game, like, it's so rad. Look, I want to say, just before we get on to ranking this, before we talk, like, we are guilty of this as well, but there's a lot of, like, needless slagging on Euro computer games because, you know, we don't have anyone to represent that, you know. But we do know people that love Euro games, so. But we do, and also, I mean, we are the Hardcore Gaming 101.net podcast, so, like, it's wrong for us to pretend like, you know, oh, you can't, you know. This school of game design is all wrong, and you shouldn't do. It's like, no, it's not. And on top of that, like, games like this prove that it's not wrong. Like, this is a kick-ass game. Turrican is a Euro PC game that, in some ways, is the like final peak point of what a Euro PC game could be. Completely different to the Japanese approach. Completely different to the American approach. This is a very Euro approach, and this is where it comes together, and you can see, that's what they were trying to do. This is what they were trying to make, and it's like without, you know, putting it, and because they did, you know, they brought in some Japanese influences, they brought in some Western influences, or American influences as such, and they honed it to a product that feels distinctly European, distinctly English, or whatever. I don't think it's English, it's just European. It feels like a European microcomputer game, but it's not. I don't mean that in the pejorative sense, I guess is what I'm saying. Is I mean this is like a really technically brilliant and well thought out game by people who really cared about what they were doing and were trying to just put the best product out there that they could. They could have made this game half as good and it would have sold just as much. You should be playing Turrican 2 if you're interested in this, because it really does everything Turrican 1 does, but better, I would say. I would disagree with that, because Turrican 2 is, it might be somewhat better, maybe, but it does kind of, I think, water down what the Turrican game is. And, you know, because Turrican has rough edges, but I think rough edges are very much a part of what a Euro game is. It needs to have a slight, like, not necessarily jankiness, but it does have to have a kind of, not quite friendliness that some other games have.
Yeah, I think it's true. That's like kind of a part of the appeal is that it is hard as balls. This game is so hard, but the great thing is that because there are no ROM dumps of like the actual game, there are only the trainer versions.
Yes,
So if you want to dip your toe into the Turrican waters, you can choose infinite lives or infinite energy or whatever you want to do. I suggest infinite lives just so you don't end up, like starting over all the time. But
I mean, this is an interesting thing that we have to. I guess we do technically have to not necessarily cover it, but the fact that a lot of people who played Turrican. A lot of people were playing the trained version and setting lives to 99 or maximum whatever, and playing it that way. So it is kind of like an unusual sort of, not everyone was playing the original natural version of Turrican. A lot of people, especially kids at the time, would have been playing the illegal version with trainers, and they still enjoyed it because the game still worked.
It's amazing how much piracy was just such like a accepted common thing back then.
I don't know whether it was accepted. I think it was like more like resigned to acknowledge that
well, developers hated
make
it
like
for some reason.
Fifth as much money as we could on this game because everybody's going to steal it. I want to put this really high.
Just because it's good.
It's so good. Like it's so cool too. Like it's just like it's got rad music. It's got rad weapons. It's got like a robot that like shimmies around and like it's got the buzzsaw. It's got the it's good.
I guess the question is like
I said, it's got level design issues. I want to put it like in the I want to put it. I'm gonna say above GoldenEye, below Yoshi's Island.
Let me have a look here. I mean, that's okay. So that's GoldenEye, which is below Yoshi's Island. That's an interesting place. Yeah. So, I mean, that's like if you don't put Turrican high, what Euro game do you put high? Is kind of the thing that I'm thinking here. Like,
well, I mean,
this is it. This is the
like
Euro.
Like Out of This World. You'd put that.
Out of This World is. Out of This World is almost not a Euro. I know it is. It's French. It's French as all hell. But
no, you can't. No.
What I mean is, it's such a distinct game. Like if you have Euros,
no, it's not.
Turrican,
but like all the cinematic platformers that aren't Prince of Persia.
I mean, okay, so we got
maybe I'm actually lowballing. I thought I was putting it kind of high, but maybe that's not high enough. Maybe it's more like the Robotron Galaga range.
I'm not sure where I'd place it. I'd kind of place it lower, but I feel a bit outvoted here.
Well,
you are, but
yeah.
But we've got dogs too, so he might back you up.
I think I would put it maybe around the Rainbow Islands range, but I'm sure I'm not better there.
What the?
That's pretty low.
Rainbow Island! Okay, I'm going to tell you where Rainbow Island is for our listeners. That is one above Revolution X. No,
I just want to explain my opinion real quick. It's just
definitely give us the dissent.
I didn't get very far. It's just a really difficult game for me because it's just you're constantly being attacked by things you can't see very well that just kill you incredibly quickly, and it's kind of difficult to make progress overall.
It is.
I would say part of it is
a really hard game.
If you're coming in from Europeans would have played this with the backs behind. This is actually a fairly easy Euro. Like as far as Euro games go, this one is actually really generous. There's so many harder Euros, so if you were a European, you'd play this game and be like, wow, I can actually finish this game. Like, I'm serious, that's what you would have felt. Like, wow.
You wouldn't have actually finished it. You would have been like, oh, I can foresee myself at some point in the future finishing the game. And it is humanly possible.
Yeah, like it's not like you get to level 3 and it's like 1,000 enemies that just instantly swamp
I'm not gonna finish it, but I know that another person possibly could. So
it has that slight I think I can I can see the game actually wants me to win. It's not like constant loss. Anyway, I would probably put it personally maybe above Super Castlevania. Maybe slightly a little bit higher above Super Castlevania.
That's a good compromise. All right.
That's
because my two things were wildly different. So let's just say to give credit to Bob's legitimate issues, we'll say it's above Faster Than Light, below you're right, below Alien Soldier, above Super Castlevania 4, just because of all the technical achievements, Like, I mean, we give Super
I
Castlevania
guess it's
for a lot of
Okay,
credit.
because you got to remember, this is a 1990 game on the, we'll say on the Amiga, but just because that's before Sonic 1, and technically, this is just before Super Mario World. Like, that's where this game is, and it's before that. Like, that's...
Yeah, that's true.
That's pretty freaking
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Okay, so there we are. Turrican for the Amiga is right... Wait, I just forgot.
You said between Alien
Right below Aliens. Okay, so Amiga, the entire Amiga platform.
Please don't put the Amiga that high.
Turrican for the Amiga is right below Alien Soldier, right above Super Castlevania 4.